Hello, this is Domenico with Easynomics, and we're going to look at a macroeconomic topic, that being the Consumer Price Index, as a metric to measure inflation for households within a country over a period of time. Here we can see the US Bureau of Labor Statistics that creates the Consumer Price Index for the US government. And the idea behind this price index is creating a basket of goods and services that the average American consumer consumes, and trying to quantify all of these items that an American would be buying to cover their necessities and luxuries, and to track the price of those items on average over time to see the rate of inflation, the rate at which the price level is increasing, and for the central bank to address monetary policy according to that inflation rate. The monetary policy, the central bank has a 2% target rate, and also allows the central government to address rising inflation if it's becoming a problem through different means. So here we see for the United States, here we have all items within this consumer price index, and all the items within this consumer price index illustrates that prices on average have increased for the average American consumer by 7.7% in October 2022 compared to October 2021. So a year over year increase of nearly 8% in prices. Rising prices means that consumers' purchasing power is being reduced. Wages are not rising by that amount, so the purchasing power of the income generated by households is being diminished. If we break that basket of goods down, we can categorize it into the volatile aspects. Primary commodities are very volatile. They have very inelastic demand and supply curves. So typically, we would expect food prices to have a percent change much greater than the quantity of change, and the same for energy. And food prices and energy prices have been increasing quite a bit over this past year, in part due to the Russian-Ukrainian war. And I do have some videos that illustrate the Russian-Ukrainian war, and I'll have links to that in the top right corner in terms of the impact on cost push inflation, how it's generate cost push inflation, and also how this has led to aspects of competitive supply. So I'll have links to those videos if you're curious in the top right corner. So here we have food within that consumer price index. Let's look at food specifically. And here we can see that food has increased by 10.9%, essentially 11% increase in food, again, resulting from the Russian-Ukrainian war. Ukraine and Russia are significant global exporters into the world market of grain, wheat, um, and other items, and that has reduced the global supply of food, thus raising price. That's led to some competitive supply issues, also raising price. And again, I'll have a link to that concept of competitive supply and how it links to the Russia-Ukraine war in the top right corner. In addition, we have energy prices going up, natural gas, petroleum, gasoline, all rising. And petroleum, natural gas are primary commodities. They have very inelastic demand and supply curves, and thus they're very volatile, significant changes in price over time. And here we can see, in part due to the Russian-Ukrainian war and sanctions against Russia, which reduces Russia's exports of petroleum and natural gas into the world market and into the Eurozone, leading to reduced global supply, thus leading to a rising price. And again, very significant increase in energy prices. Right here, we have all items minus food and energy. So this is what we would call the core rate of inflation. Core rate of inflation is CPI minus volatile prices, which would include food and energy. And here we can see that all other items, except for food and energy, is also increasing by 6.3%. So it's also a significant increase. And that can be due to aspects of the post-pandemic period, where we have had some supply chain disruptions and problems China's zero COVID policy also disrupting their manufacturing and exports and reducing global supply of inputs and outputs. So there's a lot of factors going in here leading to this type of cost push inflation, rising costs of inputs for firms, and also rising prices for the average household. So this is concerning. How do central governments address this? In the Spain, for example, Spain has provided a per unit subsidy on gasoline to help people handle the rising gasoline price for transportation. In the UK government has put a price ceiling on electricity and subsidized it to keep that price down. So central governments can provide some assistance, but that increased spending does lead to budget deficits and increased public debt. The central bank can also raise interest rates to reduce aggregate demand, put downward pressure on demand pull inflation. And so those are other topics that I can have linked in the top right corner if you're curious for those topics. So what's the point of this video? Let's do some calculations. So here we have consumer price index, this topic, and under that topic, you'll be asked by the IB to calculate the rate of which prices are increasing using a weighted price index. And on exam, they'll give you perhaps a table of data over time, 2020, 2021, 2022. And in the first column, we have the price of food and non-alcoholic beverages and the price per unit, $10.35, going up to $11.75. In column 2, the price of housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels. So these are necessities. Price per unit, 13.81, rising to 16.21 over that time period. Column 3, price of transportation, going up from $11.15 per unit to $12.52 per unit. Price of clothing is kind of a necessity, but also maybe a bit of a luxury if you're buying more clothing than you actually need, going up from $10.39 per unit to $11.12 per unit. What's important is as a student, when you get a question asking you to calculate a weighted price index, you want to be attentive to what are the weights. So you want to look at what are the weights, how much should I multiply these prices by? So here we have price of food, non-alcoholic beverages. The weight is 5 units. Price of housing, water, electricity has a greater weight of 8 units. Price of transportation, 4 units. Price of clothing, footwear, maybe a bit of a luxury, less of a weight within the basket. And typically, the weights would be greater for those items to which a household allocates a greater proportion of their total income. So let's say on average, the household spends about 25% of their income on housing. So that should have a greater weight within the basket. So how do we calculate this? On a test, you may not have a matrix. You may not have a matrix to organize your workings, but essentially you want to be organizing your thoughts on the exam and doing essentially the following. So we're going to take our prices in 2020 and multiply it by the weights. So price of food and non-alcoholic beverages, we're going to multiply it by the weight of 5 units. So multiplied by 5, $10.35 multiplied by 5 works out to $51.75. Then we'll take 13.81 multiplied by the units of 8. 8 units has a greater weight, and that works out to $110.48. Then we have the price of transportation at 4 units. Multiply that by 4. So 11.15 multiplied by 4 works out to $44.60. And then we have 10.39 multiplied by the weight of, or the unit of 3. 10.39 multiplied by 3 works out to $31.17. Great. So 51.75, 110.48, 44.60, 31.17. All right, so go ahead and pause this video and calculate the price and multiplied by the weights for 2021. Go ahead and pause the video now and calculate that, and you can check your work in just a moment. Okay, so let's check your work. 2021, we're going to multiply it by 5, by 8, by 4, and by 3. So we see the weights are constant. The only thing that's changing is the price. 10.75 multiplied by 5 works out to $53.75. $14.96 multiplied by 8, that works out to $119.68. $11.27 multiplied by 4, that works out to $45.08. And then 1045 multiplied by 3, that works out to $31.35. Great. So if you've calculated that accurately, you've done a great job. Try pausing the video again and go ahead and calculate 2022 on your own, and then we'll check your work in just a moment. Go ahead and pause now. All right, so let's check your work. Let's see here. Let's use another color. Let's use blue. We'll multiply by the constant weights of 5, 8, 4, and 3. That should work out to $11.75 multiplied by 5. That works out to $58.75. Then we have 16.21 multiplied by 8. That works out to $129.68. Then we have 1252 multiplied by 4. That works out to $50.08. And then 11.12 multiplied by 3, and that works out to $33.36. Okay, so if you've done that, great job. Now what do we do? Now we have to add this all up. Here we have this column, total cost of the basket. What's the total cost of all of these items put together? So 51.75 plus 110.48 plus 44.6 plus 31.17 equals the total value of that basket is $238.00. Okay, $238.00. Let me just make that a little bit clearer, just in case you can't see that well. $238.00. So go ahead and pause the video and calculate the total cost of the basket for 2021. Go ahead and pause now. All right, so let's check your work. $53.75 plus $119.68 plus $45.08 plus $31.35 should equal, you should have had $249.86 is the total value of the basket of goods and services in 2021. Go ahead and pause the video and sum the goods within the basket for 2022. Pause now. All right, so let's check your work. $58.75 plus $129.68 plus $50.08 plus $33.36. That equals $271.87. So we've calculated the total value of these items within each basket for each year. Now we're ready to build our weighted price index. To do that, we have to be mindful of what is the base year. The question will say that there's going to be a particular year that will be our base year. So we're going to measure the rate at which prices are increasing compared to that base year, which is 2020. So 2020 is our base year. In order to create a weighted price index, we're going to take, let's see here, we're going to take the value of the basket. So let me just illustrate how this is calculated. All right, a weighted price index. Price index is equal to the value of the basket for a particular year, for your value of basket in a particular year divided by the value of the basket in the base year, value of the basket in the base year, multiplied by 100. Okay, so let's calculate the weighted price index for 2020. So the value of the basket in that year, so for the year 2020, right, for this year 2020, the value of the basket is $238, $238 divided by the value of the basket in the base year, and the base year is 2020, so we're going to divide it again by itself, 238.0 multiplied by 100. So 238 divided by 238 is 1 multiplied by 100 equals 100. The base year will always be 100. That is our starting point. Okay? Let's go ahead and do that for 2021. Okay, so for 2021, maybe I'll put that in a different color over here so we can clearly see it. 2021, what is the value of the basket? So we're going to take the value of the basket in that particular year, $249.86 divided by the value of the basket in the base year, which is 238. 238.0 multiplied by 100. If you take that number, divide by 238, you're going to get 104.98. So the weighted index is 104.98. Now go ahead and pause the video and calculate the weighted index for 2022, taking the value of the basket divided by the base year. Pause the video and tell me what number you get. Pause the video now. Great, so let's check your work. So for 2022, we're going to take the value of the basket, which is 271.87, divided by the value of the basket in 2020, which is 238.0, multiplied by 100, and that gives us a value of 114.23. So there we go, 114.23. And here we've created this weighted price index. So we've done the task for this assessment. Good. What does this mean? Well, let's go over that. This weighted price index is measuring the rate at which prices are increasing compared to that base year. So a question could ask you, state the rate of inflation, the rate at which prices are increasing from one year to the next. So let's say I want to calculate what is the change, what's the percent change from the year for 2020 to 2021. So I'm going to take this, and as a quick reminder, percent change is calculated as final value minus initial value divided by the initial value times 100. And I want to calculate that for 2021. What's the rate at which prices are increasing from this point to this point? And it's relatively obvious. We can see that, but I'm going to just demonstrate my work. So 104.98 minus 100.0 divided by the initial value. Again, final minus initial divided by initial times 100, and that equals 4.98%. So what does that mean? It tells us that the rate of inflation, the rate at which prices are rising in that basket of goods and services, is going up by 4.98% from 2020 to 2021. What's the rate of inflation between 2021 to 2022. I want to calculate that. What's the percent change from 2021 to 2022? You can pause the video and try that calculation, and we'll check your work in just a moment. Go ahead and pause. Okay, so let's check your work. The final value is 114. So I'm going to take 114.23 minus the initial value of 104.90, oops, 98 divided by the initial value of 104.98 multiplied by 100. And that tells us that inflation is increasing by 8.81%. Prices on average in that basket of goods and services increasing by 8.81%, whereas in the previous year it was going up by 4.98%. So that's a very high inflation rate, beyond the 2% inflation target for the Federal Reserve Central Bank. So the central bank will intervene by raising interest rates to reduce levels of demand pull inflation in the economy. Okay, so this was all one big video on calculating a weighted price index that we see here, how we do that. And then once we create that index, what does it mean? We're basically measuring the rate at which prices are rising compared to that base year. Okay, 114.23 basically means that the rate of change of prices was 14.23% compared to that previous base year. But we're always going to be calculating the rate of change between one year and its previous year, as we just did. 2021 to 2020, 2020 to 2021, 4.98%, and then 2021 to 2022, 8.81% inflation. So again, that is what governments are trying to do with this consumer price index, and that's what these values mean, and that gives you an idea of how it's calculated. If you have any questions, feel free to comment those questions below, and don't forget to subscribe and to like, and thank you so much.